Hello explorers of the elementals and keepers of the fire. It's Tom Gingrass, and I'm here to show you just a real simple thing. I have a barn door, or a barn type door that opens to the sides here that I made for my shop. This side I use to open mostly, and this is the locking side. But sometimes I like to have the door only open a crack. So I thought rather than use chain or rope and let it go wah-wah, you know, back and forth when the wind blows, that I would make a rigid thing to hold it. There are a number of different approaches to bending material. This is going to be a very simple, very basic approach. I can use simple tools, like I use these vice grip 9-inch vice grip channel lock type tool. I'm sorry, not vice grip, channel lock type tools for so much stuff that I do. This one I've reworked the head on it. I've ground it off here and here. I have kind of a hammer face there. And this allows me, if I grind these two surfaces, I get to get in tighter places and be able to work in a much closer atmosphere than normally. And then I always grind off one end so that I have a pry bar right there on my tools. This is very, very handy for so many things. There are other types of bending tools. This is a type that I learned about from a blacksmithing class that I took from a gentleman named William Bostis. Very simple. Sometimes I'll put grooves in here with a grinder. Just touch the edge of the grinder to it so that it'll hold the work vertically better. And sometimes I'll put a diagonal here so that the line of the handle and the line of the work that I'm bending will be all kind of in a straight line and give me better leverage that way. All I'm going to do, oh, and this is another one, another type of bender. And I was doing a railing for somebody, and I needed to do some twisting on the inside of two bars that were, you know, like this, and I needed to be able to reach in and turn in order to twist a bar. So I built this little guy here, which is going to be a combination of the bends that I show you today. Kind of squared off. It's not really, this is not really beautiful blacksmithing. A real blacksmith would square these corners up and make it really parallel and beautiful. But this is just kind of thrown at it to get the job done. And I picked the piece up off the floor that was actually bent kind of like this, and then refined it. And then I thought, well, maybe if I put a little thing in here in the middle, I can bend things this way. Yeah, this way. And if I put something at the other end, then I can basically have the same kind of tool I had before, except I'm bending on a straightaway and again parallel with the shaft of the piece. So you can see that I've ground those edges a little bit so that they'll lock in better to the piece that I'm working on. So let's get on with it. I'll just show you real quickly. I'll light my torch like I always do. I've got the Cobra 2000, DHC 2000 with a #1 torch tip on it. You can see the groove in it. That's a wide groove close to the nut, and that means that it's a #1 tip. Their tip sizing is different than the American made torches. These screw off right here. There's, you know, they're cheap by comparison to the other torch tips. This is a small torch tip for the kind of work that I'm doing, but this is a very small diameter 3/8 rod that I've ground the end off on to round it out a little bit so that there's no sharp edges. And again, a very simple need and a very simple solution. Okay, get my torch burning here, and if you can hear the flame, notice that I've got more acetylene in this flame. So it's a carburizing flame, acetylene rich. I'll show you more on this in another video. And then as I add oxygen, I get a shorter and shorter little flame here called a feather. I get a shorter feather as I add more oxygen. What I want is to put my torch right at the place where I have a cone. And the cone is where the heat is. The most heat is right off the tip of the cone. Just like a candle, the greatest heat is right above the tip of the flame. Now if I want to turn it up, I'll add more acetylene. Because I want to get this done, right? I don't want to stay here all day doing this. It's an attachment, it's an accoutrement to my studio. It's not something, and it's something I'll use every day, but I don't need it to be a fancy work of art. Okay, so let's crank it up a little bit more. About 2 inches, 1.5 inches on the feather. That's a good increment to measure your flame by. Then we'll add more oxygen, and that's pretty hot. Okay? Then all I need is the width of this is a 1/4 inch here. It's got a hole in it, so I can put a lock in that and the other piece above it that I'm going to attach the other end of this to. So I'll just heat up about 1 inch in. And you can see it's turning orange, which is going to be about 2100 degrees or so. I don't need this to be long unless it's really windy, in which case I probably wouldn't have the door open anyway. Okay, and I'm going to do 3 times the length of the material in terms of my heat. And you can see how hot it is in the very center, and then it's red on the sides, or orange on the sides. So heat up about 3 times the width of the material, and then I'm going to put it in what's called the Pritchel on the anvil. I'm going to bend it over at 45 degrees. Part of the reason for that is you can see the fire scale on the piece itself is starting to crack, and that often means that the material under it is in a little bit of distress. So I'm going to heat it a little bit hotter now again and finish my bend that way. And normally I would have a vise or something that I'd put my torch in so that I can have a place to rest it when I'm doing the hand work. But this one is so simple I can just do it with the torch alone. Okay, again, 3 times the length of the bend. And then I'm going to bend again until the piece rests on the anvil face. That will usually mean that it's a little bit open. Okay, so I'm going to take it over to the side, the short side. Whoops. And finish the bend out to 90. All right? Now, if I get in a hurry and I really want to get this done, then I'm going to work the other end while this end is hot. And I can already feel it through my gloves. I use what are called TIG gloves. They're very lightweight gloves, so I can get an actual feel for the heat. I don't want to be insulated from knowing the truth, okay? So there's not a bury your head in the sand kind of operation. You want to know what's going on with the material. Okay, so I can probably from here start heating this end. It may get a little warm, but I'm going to go ahead and try it so that you can see what this is all about. Again, 3/4 of an inch from the end. Another thing I could do is quench the bar in a quench tanker in water. Now this is going to make both ends of my fingers hot fairly quickly. So I'm going to lay it down on the anvil, not on the anvil itself, but next to the end of the anvil. And I'll pick it up with my pliers, which I'm going to open out to the first position. You see it's got grooves on the back of the pliers. That's why they call them channel locks. There's channels that the pliers lock into. Yep. I'm getting in that first position, so I have about 3/8 of an inch of grabbing to be able to do. Turn it over, grab the bar like that, and then I can go ahead and reheat my nub end, what you call it. Now the other thing I want to keep fairly much in mind is that I would like this to be parallel. The bend on this end to be parallel to the bend on this end. And there's my three times the heat. This is showing up really nicely on the camera how the center section where the torch has been is the brightest. Okay, I'm going to put it in the Pritchel. I'm going to try to bend it in a straight line with the other end and do my 45 this way. Okay, so I've got my 45 and my 90 on the other end. Then I'll heat again. Okay, and this time I'm going to shut my torch off because I'm done. Put it in the Pritchel, bend it down. Hanging place for my torch on here. And this end is still hot, right? Whoa, wait a minute, dude. You can't see that that's hot. It looks cold, but it's probably about 1200 degrees. So even your gloves will make you smart if you pick something up with skinny gloves. Okay, now I could rearrange this a bit. I might have to remember my hot end, right? And I could put it down here and I could pop it with a hammer if I want to make it square. And maybe even compress in this groove a little bit. So that it'll lock into the place I want it to lock into better. Pop it once on that end, I'll pop it once on the other end. Even though it's cold, it's still hot enough to move the metal. Pop it once, and there we have a functional little locking device for my door. Which this is steel, so I can put it on here and try it out. There we have it. Success in a foot of steel. Okay, keepers of the fire, welcome back, and I'll be doing some more videos on practical shop stuff for the sculptor and the metalsmith. Right now I have a piece of bronze sculpture. I'd like to shoot some pictures of that and videos of that and show you what's going on in that arena as well. So we have sometimes the sculpture world and the metalworking world all kind of fit together. So it's nice to have a broad range of skills that you can choose from, like tools in the toolbox. The more tools you have, the more jobs you can do. And the more quickly or more easily you can do use things. An instance that I have is I have a brake tool, which, you know, talk about old cars. I had a 1961 Chevy pickup before, and it looks like a screwdriver on both ends, but it has one end is 45 degrees and the other one is about 30 degrees or whatever. And it was for flipping a little lever inside to release the brakes. I use that for my sculpture stuff. When I need a tight place, I get in a tight place to bend things, I'll use that tool. So there's a lot of different little tricks like that you can do, and I'm here to show you, okay? So thank you for being here with us, and keep your fires lit. We need more light in the world.